In my last Monstera video, I repotted my Monstera deliciosa on camera for you guys and unearthed a whole lot of plant drama. In that video, I mentioned that once you see your aerial starting to go wild and roots are everywhere, that is the moment that your plant is telling you it's ready for a repot. In that said video, I showed you all how I did not take my own advice, but instead I took the aerials and plugged them into a secondary pot because I just needed some more time. I was in between moves and I needed more time to just get everything that I needed to repot my Deliciosa properly. And guess what? In this video, I'm going to show you all how my Monstera Thai Constellation attempted to do this for itself. Watch this reel next. I posted this reel to YouTube a couple days ago in preparation for this repot video. And pretty much what happened was my Thai constellation was living in the greenhouse. It's such an easygoing plant that I didn't pay it much mind until I saw the aerials dangling and apparently had invaded my cardwell lily or tractor back or tractor seat lily. And I don't know what you guys call it, but that's what we call it here in Trinidad, tractor back lily. It invaded, the aerials invaded this potter and went through the drainage holes and continued growing. As soon as I noticed that, I pulled my Monstera Thai Constellation out to immediately rescue my plant. And surprisingly, it had already started propagating itself. There were secondary roots growing out of that aerial, so it had to be in there for some time. I had also noticed that my tractor seat lily was not pushing any new growth, so that also drew my attention to that space in the greenhouse. So finally, it got rescued, and my Monstera has successfully communicated with me that it was ready for a repot. At the time of potting it up into this pot, I had used this makeshift moss pole. At the time, this was a couple of years ago, and the roots have lodged inside of there, and it's impossible to completely rip it out. I have to actually get my scissors and cut through it. It served its purpose in terms of lending support to the plant, and I also had to add later on this bendable stake. It was a trendy tool at that time, and I thought it would have lent support to my leaves. The petioles were quite long, and I wanted to arrange those leaves beautifully. So I thought to use the bendable stake to help with additional support, and that's what I was yanking out there in preparation to give her a full facelift and repot. That time has finally come now, and I'm going to repot her live with y'all and show y'all step by step my method, as well as tips, tricks, and hacks along the way. So let me show you what keeps my Monstera Thai Constellation happy. So hey guys, welcome back. If you're new here, this is a faceless plant YouTube channel. If you're anything like me and prefer to see foliage than faces, then you're in the right place. Today I want to repot my Monstera Thai Constellation with you guys like I did with my Monstera Deliciosa 8 months ago. And again, my own advice evaded me because I totally missed when my Monstera Thai Constellation aerials just started trying to take over plant pots in the greenhouse. That was my key indicator and one of my main points in the last Monstera video to look for when your aerials start just going wild like that. That's the moment that your plant is basically trying to tell you it's ready for a repot. So here's what you can expect in this video. I'm going to share my personal plant care regime as it relates to growing in Trinidad or in tropical environments, how I got my Tycon to grow faster and produce abundant, stable variegation, and one last topic that is not very popular on the internet, which is, should you grow your Monstera on a pole or not? So let's start by taking a closer look at the root situation or the aerial root situation for now, just so that you'll have a clear visual of what we'll be working with today, as I intend to repot my Tycon in front of y'all. I bought this Monstera back in October 2021, and my first post to Instagram was in May 2022 when I had successfully grown a few leaves since buying it as a cutting. I was quite intimidated back then by Monsteras. Over the years, I've learned from trial and error, and I think this plant should have been way bigger, having been grown for 4 years. But, this is a realistic and true account of my experience growing it. By no means am I a Monstera expert or plant expert in any regard. I am just a hobbyist like you guys, watching plant YouTube and learning from videos and doing my own research. So I'm hoping that my honest plant experience here can be helpful to you all. I think my biggest mistake growing Monsteras is always being late to repot it, and so I've experienced stunted growth. If you look closely, you'll see roots circling the pot as seen before it invaded another pot, and there's a lot of surface roots just, trying to escape a situation that is quite cramped. So let's not waste any more time. I'm going to start the repot now, and we're going to use this space because I don't want to have to carry a massive pot too far, so I'm not going to be potting up on my potting station. We're going to pot it in situ. So let's make some space and give ourselves some wiggle room. I'm going to get rid of this sad peace lily that I was hoping to be able to grow out here in this little Zen garden that I'm trying to create outside of my office, but it's way too hot for it. So I'm going to put it back in the greenhouse to rehab, and that'll give us some additional working space. This Monstera Thai Constellation has remained a favorite for me, even though there are a ton of new Monsteras. This is still really, really close to my heart. It is one that I've learned a lot from, and I want to start off by saying that the number one tip I can give is to, besides staying on top of your repots, is to have the right soil mix and to ensure that your roots have enough space. That is really important because on the internet and research, and yes, from my personal experience, I do find it to be a slower grower than my Monstera deliciosa. Okay, so let's take this Monstera out of the potter and see what the root system looks like. I'm just adjusting the camera to make sure you'll have a good visual. Firstly, I'm going to detach it from this trellis that I had put it on. In the reel earlier in this video, you'd have seen that I tried growing it on a moss pole, and then I used a bendable stake. All of those things I wouldn't recommend. In hindsight, I guess it provided some support at the time, but this trellis has been such a game changer for me because I can attach the Monstera as well as its leaves. So the main stem and the leaves get support from using a trellis as opposed to a pole. I will not be adding a pole in this repot. I'll be adding back the same trellis because I find it so convenient, and I can just redirect the aerials into the soil and have them root naturally in there as opposed to trying to encourage it to root in a pole. I just find that cumbersome to deal with, and I can achieve the same thing by just using the trellis while getting additional support for my leaves and the stem too. One of my main goals as a plant collector is to be able to decorate with my plants. So this trellis turned out to be a really good tool to help me display my large leaves and while giving support to the plant. But with all that said, this is not a general rule of thumb for all monsteras that I have. I highly, highly recommend putting your monstera albo on a pole though. Just from my experience, I find once every new aerial gets lodged or starts to grow into the pole itself, upon emerging, it helps to prevent browning and it encourages the leaf size to increase a lot faster than if the aerial had to grow all the way down into the pot. In my experience, my Monstera Thai Constellation has been a lot more forgiving than my albo when it comes to underwatering. I featured some browning spots on my albo in the clip on screen right now, and that is always when I miss a watering. If you haven't noticed already, I am absolutely struggling to get this thing out of the pot. And again, this is just, when you stall on the repot, it just makes your life so much more difficult because I don't want to lose roots. I mean, I know natural shedding of roots, is can be expected in this hobby, but I don't want to lose any new roots or break the stem of the plant while trying to, for what seems to be violently trying to remove this. That's how I feel. But look at the top of this. The entire, I don't even think there's a cup of soil even left in there. The entire thing is just roots now. And I will not recommend this. It's going to slow your growth down. It's going to cause browning in your leaves. It's just going to give you stunted growth. And it's just not the ideal situation your Monstera Thai Constellation should be in. Finally, I got it out. Take a closer look at this. Now you can clearly see how these Monstera roots have become in this pot. When a Monstera becomes this root bound, you're going to stunt your leaf growth. The next leaf to come would have surely been smaller than the one before, and It also prevents those big dramatic fenestrations from coming to the forefront. Giving your Monstera roots more space is one of the easiest ways to encourage faster growth in general. A lot of these roots look rotted as well, but I'm not going to disturb this root ball. I know this Thai Constellation has bounced back. If you missed my greenhouse videos, I moved homes and my plants suffered for a very, very long time. Only recently, my Monstera Thai Constellation in particular has started back to push leaves. And well, now, because of this repot situation, or should I say lack of a repot, has caused it to get stunted. But I'm just going to try and remove this plastic piece that was attached to the pole that it was on to continue to just loosen the ball gently but not untangle it. I think that will be absolutely impossible for me to do anyway. In view right now are the aerial roots that tried to take over another plant's pot and started rooting in it in the greenhouse. I have special plans for those. Let's get into my Monstera Thai Constellation soil mix next. I'm going to show you all the size pot I intend to pot it back into, and I believe it's going to be this taller bucket style pot. It's also a lot sturdier, easier to handle with that top grip. I get my pots from Grow Right or Utopia. I will link them in the description for you all. I had this other pot that was wider, but it's shorter, and I'm leaning more towards the taller one to give better support. Okay, so I'm going to make my mix in front of y'all now. I like to keep things very chunky and well draining with pesticide in it. Monsteras, being tropical aroids, prefer their roots to be in well aerated soil that doesn't stay wet very long. So my mix, I'm going to show you all the individual components. I start with a basic aroid mix that I get from Utopia that is very nutrient rich. I'm also going to add some chunky perlite that I get from the succulent sauce. In addition to those, I'm going to add some horticultural charcoal that I break into smaller pieces if I don't have enough, but it looks like I would. And some orchid bark. This is the medium green. I get this from Home and Garden in Arangwes. So that is what helps me maintain a well aerated soil, because those are some larger particles that help to create large air pockets in the soil as opposed to a compact soil mix. I don't have exact measurements. I sort of eyeball it, but I would add some context for y'all. In this case, based on the amount of soil that I'm going to need, I think I'm going to use half bag of the Utopia aroid mix. This is a very, very nutrient-rich soil mix. I'll put up on the screen all the different ingredients for y'all, followed by some orchid bark, and I'm going to use the same quantity of large green perlite as I am with the orchid bark. Recently, I found this large green perlite really hard to come by, so I was so happy to bump into Avi at the succulent sauce in Arangwes, who actually had it in stock, this entire bag, which is almost done, but this size bag was $40. And finally, I'm going to add some of that horticultural charcoal. This is available at Grow Right. It has great antifungal and antibacterial properties that help prevent root rot. So this mix that I've just shared all the components to is what I use to make my Monstera Thai Constellation soil mix, which allows my roots to breathe and prevent root rot. Let me just spin you guys around and give you a closer view of all the components and the final mixed product. Okay, so these are all the components and the quantities that I'm going to mix today to make my soil mix. As mentioned before, the aroid mix that I use is very nutrient dense. It contains slow-release fertilizer as well as bat guano. So upon potting up, my Monstera could start feeding and just nourishing itself back to health from the start. The function of all the other components is to just aid in aeration to ensure that I have a well-draining mix. The last thing Monstera roots want to do is sit in wet, soggy soil. And as I said before, the charcoal helps to prevent any sort of infection or so after repotting, so the plant does not experience as much trauma as it would have without it. My thought process when deciding on a mix for my plant, besides looking at common practice online and what other locals are doing, is I am always concerned about the plant going into shock after repotting and its roots being messed with. The more I can minimize the downtime after disturbing the roots, I pay close attention to. So I supplement heavily. I'll give you all a close up of the supplements that I use to just speed up that acclimation process again after disturbing the roots. Furthermore, I'm thinking because the plant is going through such a stressful time at this point, I always ensure that it has enough nutrients. So I try to give it a vitamin boost per se. So I make sure that my aroid mix has sufficient nutrients for the plant to just get through the stressful period. This type of thinking to me has really presented itself in faster growth after repotting. There isn't very significant downtime. I see a new leaf within like a week or week and a half per se, and it's always bigger than the last. So now you know all the secrets to my Monstera Thai Constellation soil mix, and what we're going to do is head over to our working area and finally get this plant into this new mix and new pot. I can't remember if I mentioned before, but the pot size that I chose to size up is just slightly bigger. You don't want to go too big because that can cause the soil to stay wet for too long, and Monsteras do not like that. Okay, so let's get her into her new pot next. The first thing I'm going to do is show you all the root ball, the size of the root ball as it compares to the size of the pot that I'm going to plant it into. I want to be able to sufficiently bury it. But besides that, I want the plant to have sufficient room around the root ball as well to expand its root network. If I had to put a figure on the size jump that I'm using for this pot, I would say 1/3 the size bigger than the one it was in before. The next step is to add some of our fresh soil mix to the bottom, and I only add mix up to, I will lift the pot up to show you all exactly where I stop, but I don't fill it halfway. I fill it, yeah, like around there. So that's about a quarter of the way. Then I'm going to add my Tycon in so you can see the difference in height now from the first time that I added it in. So you can see that the top of the root ball itself is probably like 2 to 3 inches from the rim of the pot. I'll give you all a view from the front as soon as I stabilize it. So what I'm doing is making sure all the areoles that have started to root, those are the ones that invaded the other pot. I'm trying to see if I can bury it alongside the main roots. But in the event that I can't, I'll show you guys a setup that does not destroy those soil roots that have already been established or have already been growing. In the event that I want to propagate this plant, I already have those roots attached to the stem that I could just cut off and have a second plant, but I'm not ready to do that as yet. So let me see how things go, and we'll decide what we do with those roots, if they remain exposed or not. So what I'm doing now is adding back this trellis, just having it sit on the rim like this. It doesn't have to go all the way down because it's going to lean against the wall and be even more supported. So I'm just positioning it in here as best as I could without disturbing any of the roots, and just finding the right spot for it to make sure that my Monstera actually sits in the middle of it. Again, for display purposes, as I mentioned before, I'm really growing my plants to create a really dreamy tropical environment for myself and my family to just reside in when we want to step outside the office or when we're just outside chilling. In keeping with making sure that my Monstera is well secured, I'm going to grab some Velcro straps next. In the past, I have used jute rope as well as yarn to help secure my Monstera, the stem as well as the leaves, but I find it to be very damaging because as the wind blows and as the plant grows, it sort of cuts into the plant tissue. If it's one thing us Monstera collectors can agree on, is that we all want huge leaves with lots of fenestrations. Making sure that your Monstera feels or is well supported on a pole or whatever you decide to support it with just helps the plant achieve that, and by extension we can just enjoy the beauty of these large well fenestrated leaves. Also, what I want to recommend with respect to a soil mix, yes, I'm using pre-mixed aroid mix, but this is because I have tested the soil over the length and breadth of my hobby. So I understand how this particular pre-mix works. I have also been studying myself to understand, well, what is my growing manner, or what habits have I developed over the years to help me understand the type of mix that I need for my Monstera Thai Constellation. In other words, I am an overwaterer. So the mix that I get, which is already an aroid mix, I still amend it. So you would have seen me amending it with all the different components. And that is me learning about myself now to make sure that I am making the right mix to not kill my plant, but, to just have really, really large, beautiful plants. All in all, to say and to just manage everyone's expectations that we sometimes look to products to solve all our problems, but ignore what we're actually doing and the role we play in terms of plant care. So some introspection, or I would say a lot of introspection, is required in this plant hobby in general, just so that you're putting your best foot forward, and you're really thinking about where you stand in this hobby. And to me, that is essential to being able to provide a proper plant care, and really to just capitalize and enjoy being the main player in this plant hobby. With all that said, I think the last thing that I want to talk about in this video is making sure that your Monstera Thai Constellation receives strong, bright, indirect light. In my last greenhouse update, I mentioned that I believe my Monstera wanted more light, so I moved it out. So now it lives outside of the greenhouse, receiving morning light, direct sun, up until 11 a.m. Side note, what you're seeing me doing here is just wedging a rock in between the pot and the trellis to continue stabilizing this system in general. But anyway, the lighting situation plays a key role in ensuring that your variegation is abundant and stable. Because it's a variegated plant, it doesn't photosynthesize as fast as, let's say, a Monstera deliciosa, which is 100% green. So you have to make sure it receives good light. The fertilizer that I use to help me along the way is TPS1. It's a hydroponic fertilizer. Consistency is another weakness of mine, but from the time I see a new leaf on the way, that actually triggers action or fertilizing action in my mind. I know the plant will need more nourishment because it'll be utilizing a lot more energy to push out this new leaf. So that usually signals me if, I've been lapsing with fertilizing. And besides my general feed, I also use TPS silica just to encourage more resilience in the plant and to prevent browning. Silica tends to increase the strength of the cell walls, which helps to prevent browning. I just want to show you all my Monstera albo. At this point, it is a lot more fickle than the Monstera Thai Constellation. That's the great thing about my Thai-con. That's why it will always remain my number one favorite Monstera. It is such a resilient plant, and it is forgiving, as opposed to my albo, which tells you when you've made a mistake. I'm going to show you all from top down, and the points where you see the browning was when I missed a feed and missed my silica applications. Now, besides drenching my plants, TPS1 is a hydroponic fertilizer. I also foliar feed, and that has made all the difference in maintaining my super highly variegated Monstera albo. In the same way, this is how I use it for my Monstera Thai Constellation as well, to maintain the variegation in abundance. Here's one of my plant hacks that I use for all different types of plants. This is just me creating a collar for the exposed roots on my Monstera Thai Constellation. I wasn't able to cover the roots that snuck into the other plant's pot, so I decided I was going to just create hack here using another nursery pot to just bury these roots in soil. So it's like a pot on top of a pot. But in the long run, I know this is just me creating an opportunity to propagate this plant later on. The more roots I can get on the soil, the better for me, because good light, proper fertilization, and healthy roots all help to maintain strong Monstera variegation. So I've successfully got those roots to sit inside of this little collar, and all I'm going to do next is backfill with the Monstera mix that we just made. Before I backfill it, I'm just going to grab my Velcro strips again and secure this collar to the trellis, and to basically close it back up so that the soil doesn't go flowing out when I water or when I start backfilling. I'm just going to rip a piece off and weave this through the trellis and around the pot along the rim line or the top of the pot itself, and just stick it together like that. So now I really have a pot on top of a pot. This is a close-up of the collar itself and what it looks like attached to the trellis. You really just can't go wrong with Velcro. I can't stress how much this is just time saving. And it's just so wonderful to be able to reuse it over and over. It's just, super convenient. I have this thing stocked by the roll. But anyway, I'm just going to scoop the rest of this mix up and just toss it in there like that. And going forward, and as the plant continues to grow, I can direct aerial roots down into there now, and then it can continue to grow down into the main pot. So as mentioned before, I like using systemic granules as a pesticide in my soil mix, but I didn't mix it, which I probably should have when I was making the mix itself. But it's really a topical treatment because as you water your plant, the plant picks up or it absorbs the pesticide through its plant tissues via the roots. And finally, I'm going to grab my Great White and water the entire plant thoroughly. This is a mycorrhizae that allows for efficient nutrient uptake. It also helps to prevent plant trauma when repotting, so I never skip this step. I just water the plant like this thoroughly. And there we go, my Monstera Thai Constellation is now freshly repotted with plenty of space for new roots to grow. Hopefully, this will encourage even bigger leaves and stronger growth over the next few months. If you enjoy Monstera care, rare houseplants, and greenhouse plant collecting, make sure to subscribe because I share a lot of plant experiments, repots, and unexpected plant moments here. The final step is just for me to make it display appropriate. So what I did was orient the leaves in a way that I think look beautifully arranged using Velcro and some yarn. I know I said I very seldom use yarn, but I buffered the stem using this like a bundle of cotton strips that I think I used to make a tassel, or it fell off of an ornament or something, and I just kept the tassel, sorry, and now I'm using it to buffer the stem from the weight of itself against the yarn like that. But anyway, if you want more Monstera action, you can watch this video next.